A Marine's unbelievable act of kindness transforms a little girl's life, revealing a hidden truth. Jake Thompson leans against the weathered wall of the community center. The echo of laughter and the distant clatter of chairs swirling around him like old memories. At 38, he feels the weight of the world pressing down, a former Marine whose pride has been chipped away by the losses he faces back home. Unemployment has stripped him of purpose, and the factory job that was his lifeline vanished after the last round of layoffs. His wife, Cassie, works long hours at the diner, sacrificing her own comfort to keep the household afloat. He watches her tireless efforts and feels a pang of inadequacy, gnawing doubt that he isn't doing enough. As he fidgets with the hem of his shirt, his gaze drifts to Maya, a little girl sitting alone on the edge of the room. Big brown eyes, shadowed with a haunting sadness, reflect a turmoil that resonates deep within him. She looks lost, battling the ghosts of bullying and isolation. Every time Jake approaches her, a part of him aches with a mixture of fear and resolve. He hesitates, questioning if he can truly impact her life the way he wants to. After all, he was meant to protect those in need, not flounder in his own uncertainty. When he finally steps forward, something lights up her face, a flicker of hope. It makes him shudder with determination. A purpose ignites within him, driving away the shadows of his own struggles. For the first time in months, he feels needed again. He speaks to her about science, about the wonders of the world, seeing the flickers of curiosity within her. Yet, doubts creep in as he worries he's setting her up for disappointment. She's surrounded by barriers, her history, the judgments from peers, the school board's disdain for kids from rough backgrounds. And what about his own failures? What if he can't protect her from the harshness of life? Before he can spiral down his rabbit hole of worries, his phone buzzes in his pocket. He pulls it out, sees the name flashing on the screen, and that familiar jolt of anxiety hits him. Just as his interest in Maya's potential deepens, his own family obligations loom larger than ever. Stretched thin, can he still choose to battle for her dreams while juggling his own spiraling situation? The prospect of the upcoming science fair looms over him like a storm cloud, and instinctively, he knows this is a pivotal moment for both of them. Should he risk everything to fight against those who belittle her brilliance? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake stands at a precipice. The waves of anger and the desire for justice churn inside him, remembering the core values he'd risked his life to uphold. Still, isn't there a way to champion Maya, without succumbing to vengeance that might overshadow her? Internal anguish grows, and as the fair approaches, he feels the pressure build. The community's intolerance threatens to cradle them both in shadows, distinct yet connected, a malignancy that cannot overshadow their shared flame of resilience. And then it hits him, the secret hidden legacy linking him and Maya, intertwining their fates. He can no longer ignore it. It shakes him deep, molding doubt and fear into a decisive confrontation. Will he protect what is left of his own family's honor, or extend his infantry approach to shield a girl who unwittingly embodies his past struggles? Jake takes a breath, heart racing, because a decision unmade hangs like a weight. A final, terrifying choice in the echoing silence of his life that could change everything. Jake stares at the phone, his fingers trembling as he contemplates the call from Cassie. The tone in her voice an unmistakable reminder of the tension simmering just beneath the surface of their lives. Each ring pulls him away from the moment with Maya, from the unmistakable fire igniting in him. There's a tangible link between them now, his resurrection of purpose intertwined with her youthful potential. But the reality at home is a gravitational pull he doesn't know how to escape. After a moment he answers the call, his voice steadying as he forces cheerfulness into it. Hey Cass. Jake, I'm concerned. The diner won't be busy for the next hour. Can you come by? We need to discuss the bills. I'm stretched thin. Cassie's voice tugs at his heart, a strain that reverberates through the phone. He feels the familiar pit in his stomach, the duality of his life growing louder. "I'll be there soon," he replies, though part of him aches to stay with Maya. He remembers how her eyes lit up with curiosity, an innocent wonder he hadn't felt in years. As he walks to the diner, the sunlight filters through the trees lining the street, illuminating the pathways of his mind. Each step feels heavier, the weight of unrealized potential pressing against the marrow of his bones. Jake wonders if he could be more than just a hollow shadow of a soldier, a man defined by his failures and missed opportunities. Sitting across from Cassie in the diner's booth, the flood of mundane struggles contrasts sharply with the vibrancy of his earlier interactions with Maya. "We can't avoid this, Jake," Cassie says, a hint of frustration mingling with worry etching her features. "If you don't find something soon, we're going to lose everything." The reality is sharply felt, slicing through the remnants of hope he's built. "I know," he replies, though his mind drifts back to Maya, the scientist waiting behind her turbulent exterior. Couldn't he aspire to help her share her brilliance? "Well, what about that warehouse job offer?" Cassie's tone catches his attention, and he squints, calculating the few options available to him. "I don't think it's right for me," he finally admits, his heart racing as the weight of his truth spills out. "I want something more meaningful, not just a paycheck." Saying it out loud feels liberating yet daunting. Cassie's expression softens, but the worry remains. "I understand, but what does that mean for us?" Jake swallows hard, the desire to protect Maya from the cruelty of the world igniting a fire within him. "I want to help her with her science project," he blurts out, fortifying his intentions. "I think she needs someone to believe in her, someone to fight for her." "Are you sure you have the time? This isn't just some hobby, Jake." The skepticism in her voice is an anchor. It digs deep into his consciousness, but instead of retreating, he feels his spirit surge. "I've been searching and searching," he states, surprising even himself with the conviction in his voice. "I know I can help break those barriers for her. It's not just about me anymore. I owe it to someone who deserves better." The look in Cassie's eyes shifts as realization dawns. "You think you can fix it all with a little girl's project?" she murmurs softly, pondering the depth of what that entails. "No, but I think I can play a part in something bigger," he replies, understanding the enormity of what he's saying, how risking everything for Maya represents not only a new quest for him, but an opportunity for growth, for redemption. As he exits the diner, the stakes elevate. Maya's science project looms larger than ever, a glimmering chance for both of them to rise from the wreckage. The doubts, fears, and burdens are still there, a chaotic orchestra in his mind, but now they morph into an electric anticipation. Yet he knows the community's critics will be there to counter his every move. The question that lingers like smoke in the air hangs heavy. Can he stand firm against their taunts while simultaneously lifting Maya towards her dreams? The challenge is stark, a test that will ultimately surface the truth of who he really is. With every step toward home, excitement surges alongside anxiety. The moment has arrived. The time has come for him to face not only the world outside, but also the scarred landscape within. Will he rise to the occasion, or will he falter under pressure? The next chapter of his life opens before him like a blank slate, one that he must fill with actions that can redefine both his and Maya's fate. Jake's heart thudded in rhythm with each footfall toward home, the weight of the world pressing upon him like an uninvited shadow. He had a purpose now, a spark igniting the dim corridors of his past, illuminating a path he'd long neglected. Yet the anticipation of embracing that purpose was knotted tight with fear. Doubt clawed at his confidence, whispering insidious suggestions that he was not enough for the challenge ahead. How naive it seemed, to believe he could make a difference with Maya's project. But as the familiar facade of his neighborhood drew closer, he found himself contemplating what making a difference truly meant. It wasn't just about academic accolades or winning local awards. It was about empowerment, about fostering a belief in potential that his own past failures had stripped away. Upon arriving home, he was greeted by an aura of stillness tinged with urgency. Cassie was busy working on the bills at the kitchen table. Papers lay strewn across the surface, a battlefield of numbers and obligations, yet amidst that chaos, he saw his own reflection in her determined face. It dawned on him that they were both fighting separate wars against the same enemy, stagnation and despair. "Hey, you okay?" she asked, her voice a blend of concern and curiosity. "Yeah, just thinking," Jake replied, shifting from foot to foot. The anticipation of talking to her about his plans felt like teetering on the edge of a steep cliff. Cassie looked up, her eyes narrowing slightly as they locked onto his. "About what?" "About Maya," he started, a nervous tremor trembling through his words. "I want to help her with her science project." The words fell between them like a stone tossed into still water, rippling outwards. For a moment, silence enveloped them, the weight of his proclamation hanging heavily. Finally, Cassie spoke, the sharpness in her voice betraying her skepticism. "Jake, that could take a lot of time. We have our financial issues. What if you put your energy into a job instead?" Jake steeled himself against the sting of her realism. "I know, but this could be something meaningful. I want to inject a little belief back into her life, Cassie. She deserves more than what her situation offers." "But what does it cost?" Cassie pressed, the worry line deepening on her forehead. "Time and energy we don't have? Can we risk that?" Jake took a breath, digging deep. "Maybe it costs something, but it could be worth so much more. This isn't just helping a little girl, it's about showing her she can rise above. I need to step out of my comfort zone, be something bigger than I've been." Optimism flickered anew within him as he sensed a shift. Her eyes softened, doubt still lingering but tempered by an understanding of his resolve. "What if you fail?" she whispered, vulnerability seeping into her question. "I might, but maybe I'll learn something in the process," he countered, finally embracing the uncertainty. "I don't just want to be a spectator in life anymore. I want to be an agent of change, if just for one person." Cassie's lips turned upward in a hesitant smile, a sign of reluctant support. "You're right. It could change everything. For both of you." Jake felt a wall of resistance crumble, the possibility of action swelling within him. He envisioned every moment spent guiding Maya through her project, sparking her scientific curiosity and reigniting his own lost passions. There was a strange allure in this new purpose, a sense of investing piece by piece into something precious. But just as exhilaration surged, a jarring thought came crashing through. What if the world around them crushed that spark? The possibility of community ridicule cast a shadow. Paranoia gripped him for a brief moment as reflections of past failures recoiled, whispering that he might be too late to get it right. He pushed those thoughts aside and steeled himself. He couldn't afford to back down now, there was too much at stake. With newfound determination, he resolved to meet with Maya first thing in the morning, ready to tackle her project together. But as he prepared to settle in for the night, the nagging concern that loomed was unavoidable. If he ventured forth, would he have the strength to withstand the doubts, the adversities, the very critics that might not only challenge him but threaten to destroy this fragile new dream? As he lay in bed, visions of Maya and her project danced in his mind like a flickering candle, illuminating everything he yearned to become. But in the stillness of the night, the question remained. Could he embody that promise of change before the inevitable storm of expectation came their way? He would have to confront not only the outside world but also the remnants of fear that clung tightly to him like wet clothes he couldn't shed. Tomorrow's meeting with Maya was not merely about educational guidance, it was a step into the unknown, where Jake could either solidify his transformation or become lost in the darkness once again. The sun peeked through the curtains, casting weakened beams of light across the bedroom. Jake lay awake, the fragile strands of sleep dissipating as he reviewed the purpose he had set for himself. Today, everything would change. It had to. He pushed himself upright, his previous night's fears still lingering but now tempered by resolve. He dressed quickly, each article of clothing slipping on as his heart thumped with urgency. Today, he would not allow doubt to dictate his actions. Instead of drowning in logistical nightmares, he would channel that anxiety into a steadfast commitment to Maya. Just the thought of her bright smile at the prospect of working together sent a rush of adrenaline through him. After grabbing a quick breakfast, he walked to Maya's house, the neighborhood alive with the soft sounds of morning routine. But internally, he battled his uncertainties. What if he faltered when it mattered most? He had never been a beacon of confidence, yet here he was, stepping into the role of mentor. As he approached Maya's front door, he took a deep breath, steadying himself. He could hear her excitement even before the door opened. The instant it did, her wide eyes fell on him, already filled with the promise of adventure. "Mr. Jake," she squealed, taking his hand and pulling him into her home. "Are you ready to start? I have so many ideas." "Absolutely," Jake responded, letting her enthusiasm trim the edges of his fear. They gathered at the kitchen table, papers and art supplies given new life in Maya's hands. As they began brainstorming, the initial awkwardness that clung to him began to dissolve. Maya proposed wild concepts for her project: rocket launches, solar ovens, and even experiments with homemade volcanoes. Each suggestion was more ambitious than the last, but he could see that her imagination knew no bounds. "Let's simplify," Jake suggested. "We should focus on one idea that you are really passionate about. What makes you excited?" Maya's eyebrows furrowed in thought. "I really love science, but I don't want to fail. I want to do something that's way cooler than everyone else's project." His heart ached at how closely her fears mirrored his own. "Failure isn't the worst thing that can happen, Maya. What matters is learning and trying again. Sometimes the way cooler ideas come from the risks we take." Jake could feel the shift. Her eyes sparkled with understanding, processing his words. It became clear that their collaboration was not merely about project execution. It was about instilling confidence in one another, reinforcing hope buried under layers of doubt. With renewed enthusiasm, they settled on creating a mini water filtration system, a project that felt both accessible and meaningful for Maya. As they mapped out their plan, Jake's internal landscape evolved. Each success, no matter how small, propelled him forward. However, just as excitement swelled, nagging thoughts of judgment bubbled to the surface again. What if this project fell flat? What if they faced criticism, not just from outsiders but from each other? Despite this, he refocused on Maya's greedy determination, an infectious energy that spurred him. As they began gathering materials, Jake shared anecdotes from his youth, tales of the failed experiments that had led him to a love for science. He noticed Maya's initial apprehension evolving into laughter, her walls crumbling with each word he shared. "See?" Jake smiled at her. "It's okay to fail as long as you keep moving forward." The hours flowed seamlessly. For the first time in a long while, he felt he was shaping something. His presence mattered here, and so did Maya's burgeoning confidence. They bounced ideas off each other, and every moment of laughter became a thread weaving them closer together. But as they marked their progress, dusk began to seep into the kitchen, and with it came a lingering threshold of uncertainty. They were on the cusp of something transformative, but at the back of his mind loomed a question. Would this push be enough to take them past the murky waters of self-doubt? Again his mind returned to Cassie's words. What would it cost him? Time, patience, or perhaps faith? Was he prepared to embrace potential failure for the sake of something so vital? As the clock ticked on, Jake felt the tension escalate. He had exchanged his fears for threads of promise, but it was clear this was just the beginning. As he looked at Maya, the shimmering hope in her eyes blurred with anxiety. Could they truly pull this off together? Tomorrow, they would face the world. But in the quiet of that kitchen, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much deeper journey. Would they emerge stronger together, or crumble under the weight of expectations? The following morning began with an infusion of sunlit resolve. Jake felt the soft rays kiss his face, washing over him like a long-awaited affirmation. Today was not merely about a school project, it was about survival in a world rife with uncertainty. He could either remain shackled by self-doubt, or forge ahead alongside Maya, who had embraced vulnerability in ways he still struggled to comprehend. As he made the walk to Maya's house, he reflected on the previous day's revelations. The idea of failure had haunted him for so long, wrapping itself around his abilities and potential like an unwelcome shadow. But yesterday marked a turning point. Every time he affirmed the importance of perseverance to Maya, he was echoing his own desperate need for it. His commitment to helping her had inadvertently set in motion a pathway for his own growth. When Jake arrived, he found Maya already bustling with energy, her enthusiasm infused with the kind of electric buoyancy that only a child could possess. She had transformed their dining table into a chaotic mosaic of materials: bottles, sand, charcoal, and a stray pair of googly eyes that somehow added to the peculiar charm of their project. A sense of urgency snapped into place. Today they would build and test their mini water filtration system. No more dreaming, only doing. "Are we ready?" Maya chirped, her eyes wide with a blend of anticipation and apprehension. Jake nodded, but he could feel his heart racing. They had sketched out a plan, but this was the real deal. The stakes felt undeniably high, yet he understood that they could either yield to fear or embrace the challenge. The bedrock of their partnership would be established through each calculated risk they took, transforming those risks into tangible successes. As they began assembling the filtration layers, Jake calmly guided Maya through the process, explaining the science behind each element. He wanted her to understand that the knowledge they were acquiring was as crucial as the outcome. "Remember," Jake said, "every time we make a mistake, it's a step forward. We learn from it. That's what matters." Maya's fingers moved nimbly as she pieced together the materials, occasionally stopping to inquire why certain steps were necessary. It was both invigorating and frightening to see her delve deeper while he navigated the swell of unfiltered worry. Yet he realized that this was not just her learning curve. It was his. In the midst of measuring and arranging, doubt sent forth its sinister whispers. What if the filter didn't work? What if their efforts were rendered futile? As he caught a momentary glimpse of his own reflection in the window, he saw a man grappling, or perhaps growing, in his own understanding of courage and belief. For every second they spent constructing the project, he could feel himself breaking down the walls he had built around his fear. Finally, they were ready to test their system, and Jake felt a wave of emotion surge within him. As Maya poured muddy water into their contraption, the seconds seemed to stretch into eternity. Would all their efforts yield pure results, or would they face disappointment? The first drop of clear water filtered through the layers, and Maya's eyes lit up like stars in a clear night sky. There it was, the moment of realization that they collectively had achieved something beyond a school project. As Maya squealed with delight, Jake felt a raw sense of pride bloom. This small triumph wasn't just about the water, it was about their journey together, a testament to how far they had come from the uncertainty of yesterday. But just as they reveled in their success, doubts crept back in, taunting his thoughts. Was this just a fluke? Could he genuinely be someone who could guide another through their fears? Deep down, he knew the truth. Growth was never linear. With every success followed a new challenge, and he could feel the next one looming over them. School presentations were around the corner, imposing a new wave of anxiety. "Jake!" Maya's voice broke through his internal storm. "Do you think we can show everyone tomorrow? What if they don't like it? What if they think it's dumb?" The air thickened with uncertainty. Would he be able to instill confidence in her even when his own was shaken? His answer rested on one clear intention. They would tackle this together. But first, he had to confront his own lingering fears. "Let's practice our presentation. We'll show them what we did and what we learned. This is really special, Maya. And if we face criticism, it only means we're learning more." As they prepared for the presentation, Jake felt the delicate lace of dread interwoven with hope. Could this collaborative effort truly pave the path to his transformation? Would the voices of doubt that once held him hostage fade away in the face of shared accomplishment? Inside, he wrestled with the notion that their success, or potential failure, might either shatter or solidify their burgeoning partnership. As they rehearsed, he realized this venture was stepping beyond the bounds of mere mentorship. It was the beginning of something more profound, an understanding of himself, the mentor, the doubter, and ultimately, the believer. And so, as dusk began to cloak the world around them once more, Jake pondered the approaching presentation with a mixture of enticement and fear. They stood at the threshold of vulnerability. Would they rise to the occasion together, or would the shadows of self-doubt consume their light? The morning of the presentation dawned, and with it came a fresh wave of anxiety that clung to Jake like morning dew. He felt the weight of anticipation pressing down on him as he and Maya set out for school, their meticulously crafted project securely nestled in a cardboard box in her small arms. The reality of their endeavor echoed in every footstep, reverberating with the loud reminders of his own vulnerability. With each step toward the school, Jake couldn't shake the nagging voice in his mind. What if they fumbled? What if Maya's enthusiasm dwindled under the scrutiny of their classmates? Despite his reassurances, a shadow of trepidation lurked behind every corner and every whispered conversation they passed. Even the familiar sight of his school felt foreign, a reminder that this moment could either elevate him further into self-belief or deepen the chasm of his insecurity. Entering the classroom brought a flurry of noise as the other students chattered, assembling their respective projects with a mixture of confidence and dread. Jake felt a trickle of sweat at the nape of his neck, and he clenched his jaw. He tightened the grip around the box, determined to present their work despite the roiling storm in his mind. "Remember, it's just like we practiced," Jake said, breaking the silence as they found a quiet corner. He glanced at Maya, who was teetering on the edge of excitement and nervousness. Her eyes darted around the room, absorbing the frenzy of preparation. "Right, presenting is like showing everyone our secret." She grinned, yet Jake noticed the flicker of doubt in her expression, mirroring his own feelings. They set up their project at the front of the class while other students threw furtive glances their way. Jake focused on the task at hand, lining the materials up meticulously, allowing the rhythm of the activity to sedate his anxious thoughts. This was a moment they had crafted together, a bridge between uncertainty and achievement, and he needed to remind himself that no matter the outcome, it was personal growth that mattered most. As their teacher called for attention, Jake felt his heart thrumming in his chest. Maya stepped slightly in front of him, a tangible embodiment of hope and readiness. "We're going to show you how to make clean water," she exclaimed, her eagerness spilling into the air. The moment her words settled into the classroom, it ignited a spark he rarely witnessed. The students leaned in, curiosity piqued, and for the first time since starting this journey with Maya, Jake saw their potential, his and hers, intertwined in the shared gull of discovery. When it came time for Jake to explain the project, his voice trembled slightly but steadied as he drew in a breath. As he shared the practical aspects of the water filtration system, he felt that familiar shadow of doubt flit through his mind. But he pushed it aside, focusing instead on one crucial realization. He was solidifying something deeper within himself, an unearthing of the leader he had hesitated to be. Maya chimed in, excitedly explaining the science behind their project, and Jake watched her shine. Her confidence grew with every word, a testament to their shared effort. In that moment, the classroom transformed into a cocoon of connection and learning, a space where failure didn't exist. They weren't just showcasing a project, they were unraveling the tapestry of success built on collaboration, trust, and vulnerability. As they concluded, applause erupted from their classmates. For the first time, Jake was unable to dismiss their applause as mere courtesy. It felt genuine, surging with affirmation. Maya's face lit up brighter than the midday sun, and Jake could not help but reflect her joy. Was this moment the turning point he desperately needed? However, as the spirit of celebration washed over him, he couldn't ignore the new wave of uncertainty rising within. The glimmering accolades of the classroom brought another challenge cloaked beneath the surface. Would he be able to maintain this momentum? Could he continue to inspire not just Maya, but himself in the process? When the teacher opened the floor for questions, hands shot up, eager for engagement. But amongst the inquiries brimmed an underlying current of judgment, waiting to expose the cracks of perceived failure. Could this newfound strength withstand the scrutiny? Just as Jake steeled himself, he sensed a familiar presence behind him. the attention of the crowd shifting. More than mere compliments or questions, he knew they were at the precipice of something vital. It was not just about the project anymore. It was about building resilience against criticism. And then there it was, an unexpected voice questioning their work. Just as doubt threatened to claw its way back into focus, Jake prepared to stand tall. He took a deep breath, the moment crystal clear before him. It was time to confront the challenges head-on. Would he rise to the occasion and defend their creation, solidifying his place as a mentor and leader? Or would he fold under the pressure, allowing his voice of doubt to dominate yet again? In that defining instant, with Maya's hopeful gaze beside him, Jake faced the inflection point of his journey. The stakes were higher than ever, and though growth often came with pain, he knew he was ready to embrace it all. The moment hung thick with anticipation. As Jake turned to face the class, he felt a surge of adrenaline pulse through him, sharpening his senses. The unexpected voice that had pierced through the dim light of celebration belonged to Ryan, the self-appointed skeptic of the grade. As Ryan's insistent inquiry wove into the fabric of the classroom, laced with scorn, Jake recognized that this was not simply a test of their project. It was a pivotal moment for him, a chance to confront the specter of doubt that had haunted him for far too long. "Why should we trust that your filter actually works?" Ryan's smirk twisted as he leaned back, arms crossed, reveling in the attention his words had drawn. Some students nodded, intrigued by the challenge. Jake felt the urge to shrink back, that familiar instinct to retreat into the shadows. But instead, he inhaled deeply, channeling the confidence he'd borrowed from Maya's earlier enthusiasm. "Because it's based on real scientific principles," he replied, his voice stronger than he anticipated. "We tested materials that are effective in purifying water before deciding on our design." He thought of the countless hours spent in Maya's backyard, experimenting with sand, gravel, and charcoal. Each successful attempt felt like building a brick in the wall of his own proficiency, each setback acknowledged as a necessary lesson. Maya's eyes radiated belief, but he could sense the surrounding tension, a blend of doubt and expectation thick in the air. He turned back to Ryan, searching for weakness in his assertiveness. "Would you like to see it in action? We have a demonstration." The challenge invested not just the project's integrity, but also dared him to stand firm against scrutiny, a test of personal conviction. A ripple of surprise moved through the classmates at Jake's offer, shifting the dynamic in the room. Ryan hesitated, uncertainty flickering across his face. "Yeah, show us. Prove it." Jake exchanged a glance with Maya, a silent synchronization of determination. "All right then, Maya, could you grab the water samples?" As she quickly gathered the pre-mixed water samples, some muddy, some clear, Jake felt a previously submerged layer of confidence rise within him. In that moment, he realized this presentation was more than about the project. It was a reckoning of his own self-doubt. Maya carefully set the samples down, and as she explained the filtration process, Jake focused on the audience, watching their reactions. One by one, students leaned in, curiosity blossoming. The tension in his shoulders began to dissolve. He had a responsibility now, not just to himself, but to Maya and their joint creation. With a measured approach, Jake began demonstrating the filtration. The crowd silenced, attention riveted, as muddy water began to run clear through their improvised system. As students' faces shifted from skepticism to intrigue, Jake could see something change in Ryan. "Actually, that's pretty cool," Ryan muttered, caught off guard. Jake seized the moment, weaving their success back to the lesson of teamwork, initiative, and the journey of discovery. "What we showed today isn't just about clean water. It's about how we can overcome challenges together, how learning transforms us." The reality of standing tall against criticism began to solidify the framework upon which his perception of leadership now rested. He wasn't just a participant in a project. He was a part of something meaningful, something that sparked curiosity and joy amongst his peers. Yet, quietly beneath the layers of affirmation, a question gnawed at him. Had he truly changed enough to keep this momentum? As he returned to his seat alongside Maya, the applause washed over them, but a quiet dread lingered. The applause paled compared to the weight of remaining challenges. Could he become a leader not just in projects, but in moments of uncertainty, guiding not just himself, but others who faced similar struggles? Just then, a soft whisper interrupted his thoughts. Maya cocked her head, looking concerned. "Are you okay, Jake? You look deep in thought." Jake's heart raced, realizing the significance of her question. They had navigated a storm together, bonded by their success. But could they continue to ride this wave? As Ryan approached with a newfound respect, ready to engage in conversation, Jake contemplated not just the project's success, but harnessing this pivotal experience to bolster his personal growth. He prepared to reflect on the broader implications of confronting doubt, ready to discover just how far he could push himself moving forward. But the gnawing hesitation urged him to question deeper. What would it take to turn this significant moment into sustained strength? Would the challenges they faced be more potent than the temporary high of their success? As he pondered, Jake realized this was merely the beginning. The next chapter awaited him, layered with challenges yet to come. Jake's mind swirled in a tempest of thoughts as he sat in the aftermath of the presentation, his heart racing and adrenaline still coursing through him. The applause might have been a fleeting moment of triumph, but it felt like a mask for deeper uncertainties. Did that singular victory hint at a new direction for him? Or was it simply an outlier in a series of ordinary days? As the classroom buzzed with excitement, Jake found himself slipping back into old patterns of self-doubt. He had briefly stepped into a new light, but darkness always loomed just beyond the glow. Maya's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts, urging him to refocus. "Jake, this isn't just about that demonstration. We need to decide what's next." Her words nudged him within, an anchor amid the storm. The project was complete, yet they had touched a nerve. They had given their classmates something to think about, but Jake felt the weight of a new responsibility dawning upon him. It wasn't just about building a water filter. It was about influencing lives. Acceptance had always been elusive, that nagging voice inside him whispering that he was merely a passenger, never quite in control of his own narrative. "What if we developed a campaign?" he suggested, feeling a cautious thrill surge through him. "I mean, if this filter works, wouldn't our community benefit from knowing how to replicate it? We could host workshops or something." Maya's smile widened, emboldened by his initiative. "That's brilliant. It would not just show people how to filter water, it could empower them. We could create a movement of sorts." Movement. The word resonated deeply, awakening something within Jake that he could hardly describe. He contemplated the ripple effect they could create, beyond the classroom, stretching into their community. The thought of leading workshops filled him with an odd mix of exhilaration and anxiety. His pulse quickened as the looming specter of vulnerability resurfaced. What if they faced scrutiny again? What if their workshop faltered, or people learned they couldn't replicate the filter? Self-doubt clutched at his throat, whispering that success hinged solely on one presentation, one fleeting moment. "Jake, are you with me?" Maya's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts again, her enthusiasm drawing him back to the present. "I think this is our chance to turn our learning into something impactful. We can help others." Her conviction struck a chord. They had managed to capture their classmates' imaginations, but could that be enough? Could he lead people beyond theoretical understanding into real, palpable change? Jake felt a shift within him, the urge to push past his previous limitations. It was time to confront that internal narrative that had insisted he was just a bystander. Maybe he did possess the seeds of leadership, a latent potential that needed to be cultivated. "I'll do it," he declared, feeling a sudden clarity. "I want to lead the workshops. With you." The determination in his voice surprised even him. Maya nodded, her excitement contagious. As they began brainstorming ideas, Jake felt a surge of momentum. Each concept was a step further away from doubt, each decision a brick in a new foundation he was laying, not just for himself, but for his entire community. Yet, Lurking beneath this burgeoning resolve was the heavy question that haunted him. Was he capable of facing all the challenges that this ambition would inevitably bring? The specter of failure reared its head, threatening to unravel the confidence he had just begun to stitch together. With each passing thought, Jake realized that leadership wasn't merely about taking charge. It was about embracing vulnerability and owning the fear that came with relentless striving. What lay ahead was bound to test him beyond the confines of his comfort zone. Could he command attention and respect in front of a room filled with strangers, poised to challenge his every move? The next meeting loomed before him, a chance to present their ideas to a group of students beyond their circle. A chance to prove that moments of courage, however fleeting, could fuel real change. Deep within, Jake's resolve solidified. He had stood tall once. Could he sustain it? The answer smoldered quietly inside him, ready to ignite when the moment required it. As they planned their next steps together, the air crackled with anticipation and uncertainty. He turned to Maya, the weight of their vision anchoring him. "What do you think will happen when we go to the next meeting?" "I think it'll be our defining moment," she replied, her eyes bright with conviction. Jake nodded but felt a familiar dread looming again. The time had come not only to face the next step, but also to confront the deepest parts of himself. He sensed that this journey would demand more than simple ideas. It required a radical transformation, a confrontation with those very shadows he had long feared. Jake's heart thudded in his chest at the thought of what awaited him, yet the excitement of discovery pulled him forward, beckoning him toward greatness. He felt ready to step into whatever came next. In just hours, the real test would begin. But amid his burgeoning confidence lingered the undeniable truth, confronting not just his doubts, but also the judgments of others who would surely challenge his emerging voice, was about to unfold. Jake stood outside the room where the meeting was scheduled, the palpable energy of the student body around him both intimidating and exhilarating. He could hear the faint murmur of chatter within, students discussing projects and plans with an enthusiasm that both inspired him and sent chills racing down his spine. As he leaned against the cold metal door, he replayed his thoughts, crafting the words he hoped would resonate with the audience. Empowerment and community surfaced repeatedly, but were they just hollow phrases? Would they see through his facade, this carefully constructed image of someone who was about to lead? Maya sensed his hesitation, eyes narrowing with concern. "You good?" she asked, her voice steadying the tremor in Jake's chest. "Yeah, just thinking about everything," he whispered, glancing into the dusk-lit room where the shadows of uncertain faces awaited. "Let's just share what we have," she replied, encouraging. "You're not just stepping forward for you. It's for them too. Remember that." Her encouragement allowed a flicker of confidence to push past his doubts. Jake nodded, allowing her an encouraging smile, even as a latent panic threatened to swallow him whole again. Inside, he could sense the shift in atmosphere as they stepped in. The workshop attendees were a mixture of fascination and skepticism, expressions ranging from eager anticipation to dismissive disinterest. He balled his fists, steeling himself against the judgment. If they were to believe in the potential of a simple water filter, he had to do more than present. Maya gestured to him as she took the lead, opening the floor with her infectious enthusiasm. Jake caught sight of some familiar faces, friends he knew, yet the pressure felt greater. He felt an invisible weight on his shoulders, a challenge to share his vision and demand their attention, but also to showcase vulnerability and honesty while he was at it. As Maya spoke, Jake's mind began to wander through different scenarios, thinking about what might happen if they failed. Would this be a significant turn in his life, or just a forgettable moment? He couldn't help but worry that their efforts could be dismissed as childish idealism, mere folly for the sake of academic credit. Yet, within that storm of anxiety, a stronger voice rose, one that urged him to embrace risk. When Maya finally turned to him, signaling it was his time to present, the air shifted. The energy intensified, as if the very lights in the room tuned into his anxiety. Jake stepped forward, his heart pounding. "Hi everyone, I'm Jake, and I want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to present our project on water filtration. He paused for breath, scanning the faces before him, searching for any signs of interest or connection. He shared the backstory, the inspiration behind the project, the process of building their filter, and its importance not only for academic purposes, but as a tool for empowerment. Each word pronounced with surprising clarity, yet his heart ached to unleash the core message he believed could shift their perspective, living beyond the confines of fear. More than just a project, it's a chance to take control, he articulated, seeking to convey more than mere facts. We can replicate this. It means anyone can take action, not just sit back while the world presents problems to us. A ripple of intrigue washed over the room, and he felt a momentary lift of hope, yet self-doubt whispered lurking questions. Could his message truly resonate? Jake took a deep breath, determined not to recede. I know there are risks involved, he continued, but we have the power to change lives, to elevate our communities, and we want to invite you all to join us in workshops, not just to learn, but to collaborate. The eyes that had been glazed over now brightened with curiosity. This was the moment he had feared yet sought, this intersection of vulnerability and the revelation of purpose. He began to sense something welling up inside him, an unexpected confidence blooming to life. A hand shot up from the crowd, cutting through his reverie. What if no one shows up to these workshops? What if it doesn't work? The question rang heavy in the air, and with it the unspoken worries returned. Jake's heart raced, the stakes were rising. This was not just another presentation. He could either crumble under the weight of doubt or confront it head-on. Failure is a part of any process, he began slowly, anchoring himself in his truth. That's the very heart of empowerment. We're not just building a filter, we're nurturing the courage to step up, even when it's scary. What's most critical is the resolve to try, and to keep trying. His voice steadied, firing at the doubts within. He could feel the scrutiny sharpen around him, yet he felt emboldened, deeper, into the core of what he needed to convey. With each passing moment, he knew what was at stake. Not just their workshop, but a glimpse into his own leadership potential, a defining moment where personal growth intertwined with vulnerability. With the final words leaving his lips, he glanced around, realizing more than just academics stood on this precipice. It was about igniting change within themselves. As he stepped backward, a sense of curiosity washed over the crowd. Would they seize the chance, or would the shadows of doubt pull them back, just as they had nearly gripped him? It was unclear, but Jake felt the flame of exhilaration ignite in uncertainty. Turning to Maya, their eyes locked with an understanding of the transformation that lay ahead, Jake felt ready to face the implications this meeting would have, not just for himself, but for all of them. And deep within, a growing realization crystallized. His journey as a leader was just beginning, yet the fear of the unknown loomed larger than before. Would this meeting really mark the start of something profound, or would doubt cast its long shadow on their ambitions once again? Jake stood on the threshold of the local community hall, a mix of excitement and anxiety swirling within him as he waited for the students from the previous meeting to gather for their first workshop. He had briefly tasted victory when he and Maya had presented their project, but today was different. This was about action, and action often came with the risk of failure. Still, what resonated within him was a steadfast resolve to lead, to dive into the unknown alongside Maya, and to truly make a difference. As they set up the workshop space, he glanced over at Maya, her contagious energy radiating confidence. "You ready?" he asked, his voice steadier than he felt. "Absolutely. This is going to be amazing. Just think of how many people we can help," she enthused, her eyes sparkling with possibility. Her enthusiasm threw a lifeline to his own trembling confidence. They had spent the last few weeks refining their water filtration project, and now they were about to put it into action, turning theory into something tangible. The first few students filtered in, a blend of skepticism and curiosity evident in their expressions. Jake began the workshop by sharing their story, the inspiration behind their project, the failures that led to their eventual successes, and the profound lesson that resilience was rooted in persistence. As he spoke, he could feel the energy shift. Questions started to arise, not just about the mechanics of their filter, but also about what it meant to take steps toward community empowerment. Each inquiry was met with the enthusiastic support of Maya, who eagerly chimed in with examples and encouragement. Together, they were creating a vibrant dialogue, building an environment where ideas could flourish freely. After the presentation, they dove into their hands-on activity, guiding the students through building their own mini water filtration systems. Jake walked through the crowd, observing students getting excited, asking questions, and laughing as they made mistakes and found solutions. But somewhere in the back of his mind, self-doubt lurked like an unwelcome visitor. What if the systems failed? What if none of them worked? He paced himself, focusing on the experience rather than the outcome, reminding himself of the insights he wanted to share. That failure was an integral part of success. Then, amid the hustle and bustle, a voice rose from the corner of the room, a student who had previously been quite reserved. What happens next? How do we make this happen for ourselves and our families? Jake felt that both the question and the moment bore heavy implications. How could he impart not just the mechanics of filtration, but also the conviction that they could advocate for their own community needs? We can start by replicating this in our homes, Jake replied, catching himself becoming animated by the opportunity to inspire. But it's more than just having clean water. It's about fostering a mindset of innovation, testing, questioning, and uniting as a community to tackle these challenges together. Maya stepped in, echoing his sentiments. We can organize more workshops, invite community members, and create something that's bigger than just us. It's about empowering our neighborhood to take action. As students began articulating their ideas for future projects, creativity flowed more freely. Jake felt a warmth blooming in his heart. It was a moment of genuine transformation, not just for the students, but for himself too. He had journeyed from a place of self-doubt to a beacon of empowerment, fueling a glimmer of hope and courage in those around him. Yet, after the workshop concluded, he sensed another tide of uncertainty descend as he surveyed the room filled with excited chatter. Could they maintain this momentum? Could he, as a leader, push through as challenges arose? Maya nudged him playfully. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Letting out a chuckle, Jake shook his head. I'm fine. Just thinking about the future, about what comes next. I think we're on the brink of something amazing, she said, and her belief ignited an ember of faith in him. The situation was demanding, filled with nuances he couldn't predict. But he recognized that each step, however uncertain, was an opportunity for growth. He had shown up, not just as a mentor for Maya, but for the entire community. With each workshop that followed, the sessions morphed into more than just educational experiences. They became a tapestry of shared learning, collaboration, and connection, allowing Jake to assert himself fully as a leader. His voice grew stronger in the face of doubt, and the fear of judgment diminished, replaced with unyielding conviction that their combined efforts were changing lives. Months passed, and the reach of their project blossomed throughout the community. Student attendance soared, parents expressed gratitude for their children's newfound confidence, and Jake had transformed from a man burdened by doubt to a leader who had confronted his inner struggles head-on and emerged with a sense of purpose. At the culmination of their project's first year, as Jake stood in front of the community hall once more, he could see the faces of families brought together through this journey. When the applause filled the air, he looked at Maya, and in that moment, it became crystal clear. This transformation was more profound than he could have ever expected. He had conquered his fears, embraced vulnerability, and stepped into the role he was meant to inhabit, one of resilience and inspiration. It was a testament to the idea that when one believes in their worth, they can change the narrative, both for themselves and others. The weight of previous failures felt lighter, as he realized that he was not just facilitating education, he was building a legacy for empowerment. The ripple effect of one child's dream had blossomed into a community of leaders eager to rise, ready to take action and create a better tomorrow. Jake smiled, satisfied and fulfilled, ready to embrace whatever the future held, secure in the knowledge that his journey was just beginning. Now, More than ever, he was prepared to lead. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you to change your life. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help push these important messages to those who need them the most. Comment your reactions and share your thoughts about Jake's incredible journey and personal transformation. And finally, don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this uplifting conclusion. Your support matters, and together we can spread the power of personal growth and overcoming challenges.